Well, hello, and welcome once again to 25 o'clock. I'm your host, Dan Drago. Thanks for joining me on the show. I know, right? Didn't we just do one a week ago? We did, but I'll get into that. I'll get into why I'm jumping the gun right here. But welcome to the show. Real quick, West Philly Porch Fest is this weekend being June 3rd, Saturday, June 3rd, noon to 6 p.m. in the West Philadelphia neighborhood. WestPhillyPorchFest.com is where you go for more information. The folks at West Philly Porch Fest have been supporters of us here at the show over the last little bit. Owen and Bobby of Driftwood Soldier were last week's guest, episode 69. I hope you enjoyed it. That episode is still up there at 25o'clockpod.com. You should check it out if you haven't checked it out already. driftwoodsoldier.com, I believe, is their website as well. West Philly Porch Fest, June 3rd, this Saturday, noon to 6. Tons of bands, super unique. Check it out. That'll be the last you probably hear from me on that because it is happening this weekend. Why are we here right now? Listen, I've been fortunate enough to do a lot of interviews over the last couple of months. Just a lot of people have come. Schedules have been aligning in a good way. I've been able to sit down and talk to a whole lot of people. Fortunately and unfortunately, sometimes with a 2-week episode schedule, certain stuff will sit in the can for a couple of months, and at some point I kind of look at it and think, am I ever going to put that conversation out? That was a great conversation. It needs to go out. It needs to be put out into the world. And if I waited for a usual 2-week turnaround, my gosh, I've got episodes to take me into August at this point, and it seems unfair to have the people who've been on the show wait until later in the summer to have their episode come out. And also, I'm constantly talking to new people, and I want to get this new stuff out too. So I don't know if this is 25 o'clock's official announcement that we're going weekly, but I'm going weekly for a little bit right now, I think. Because I have a lot of great conversations that I want to get out there, and there's a lot of new people who are scheduled to come sit in the chair as well, and I don't want people to have to wait 3 or 4 months for their episode to come out. That just seems ridiculous, and it seems ridiculous to me to have to sit and wait to put out really great conversations. So, yeah, that's why we're here right now. So, hi. Consider this a bonus episode or not. It's more episodes. More things are happening. I'll be putting out more episodes over the next little bit just to kind of get them out there. Speaking of episodes, you go to 25o'clockpod.com and you can get all the old episodes. They're all up there for streaming and downloading on the archive page. And you can also sign up for the mailing list and hook up with us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And generally just have a great old time at 25o'clockpod.com. Episode 70. How about that? I haven't marked a numbered episode verbally in quite some time. So episode 70. Holy crap. Here we are. If I sound more relaxed in this intro, it's because I'm not sitting upright at my little microphone stand. I decided not to do that for this episode. I'm literally just holding a microphone up to my face, and I'm leaning as far back in a chair as is recommended by the manufacturer. And I like this approach. I think it's going to help me from rambling on, too. I can see how long I've been talking for, and it's been a while. So let's talk about this episode real quick. I haven't even mentioned who's on the show. That's dumb. Ash Kernen is on the show this week. Ash Kernen is an awesome dude that I met at a music networking event a long time ago. He and I played phone tag and email tag and Facebook tag for the better part of half a year, it seems like, to get him on the show. And he was on the show it's almost 2 months ago. I felt I needed to get him out there. Ash Kernen is in a band called Love Cartel. He's been around for a while, been a part of the Philly music scene, and he is a musician's lawyer. He's an entertainment lawyer. You can check out his stuff. You can check out his stuff in a lot of places. You can check out the band Love Cartel at lovecartel.bandcamp.com. They've got some music up there right now, and they're getting ready to release some stuff soon. And you can also check out Ash's legal page, kernenlaw.com. That's KERNEN law.com. I know a lot of musicians listen to this podcast, a lot of people in the entertainment world. If you want to talk to a straight shooter, legal guy, a lawyer, a straight talking lawyer in the music business, I highly recommend Ash. He's an awesome dude, very, very transparent, and very, very much wants to help you if that's what that's what you want. If you need legal advice, if you need some legal assistance, and you're sort of you're sort of I can't talk. You're just sort of moving your way through the musical world, and you could use a guide on the legal end. KernenLaw.com. Talk to Ash. Ash is an awesome dude. Speaking of talking to Ash, let's just talk to Ash right now. Let's get right to my conversation with Ash Kernen here on 25 O'Clock.
The classic question of like, do these people, whether they're one-hit wonders or people like a McCartney or something, that they have to play these? Well, Paul McCartney could do what the fuck he wants, but like, but like,
does.
yeah. But let's just say, you wrote Dreamweaver in the '80s or something, and that's the song they go to see for. Like, do you? Like, I'm always curious of whether these people feel it's a gift or a curse.
I mean, in the end, if you're Gary Wright, I think it's Gary Wright who wrote Dreamweaver.
I think so.
I could be wrong.
It might have been Wayne and Garth, if I'm not sure.
I knew it from Wayne's World. I think it's Gary Wright. And the interesting bit of that's one of the first. That's like one of the first hits that featured a synthesizer.
Right.
If I remember learning this at some point. But like, if you're a guy like Gary Wright, or if you're someone like, I think of a band like the Gin Blossoms sometimes, that like they've got their 2 or 3 songs. Everyone knows Hey Jealousy. I think they have other hits, but like they had one big hit that was Hey Jealousy. And so every night that the Gin Blossoms got together and go out on the road, they play Hey Jealousy. And I think that at some point they probably hated it, and then as they got older, they're just like, hey, look, we get to go out and play them all these other songs, and then we'll play them Hey Jealousy because everyone has memories of hearing that song in the car when you're 12 years old, or like for me, like that record sort of shaped how I would play guitar. So
I'd be lying to say, and I think many people, if they're being honest about this, would like die for that situation, rather than being
one hit,
stuck on a Tuesday night at some pub in Podunk Town. But,
get a hit that resonates with people, all these one-hit wonders. Like, I think of bands like that '80s band, The Fix, with that song "One Thing Leads to Another." I think that's one of the best '80s songs ever, and like they never had another hit.
Right.
But I'm just like, or like the Romantics with "What I Like About You" or something like that. You're just like, I kill to write a "What I Like About You."
Right. No, it's super true. Marcy Playground with their track.
Yeah.
They're from here. And
are they from Philly?
I think so.
I didn't know that.
I know there's a local connection. I used to work with an engineer that was in the band for some time, or grew up with them and was in a different band.
Yeah, or like Dead Milkmen with like their one kind of quirky hit, but like that was the thing, and that's the reason. And they were also able to like hold up and make other records and like still be a good band.
And that's the funny part, to like the outside, the people on the outside looking in, we have, especially in today's day and age, we have such a short attention span that there's a blip on the radar, and then they're relegated to nothingness forever in the conscious of the the body politic. But in fact, these people have a whole career, and they're grinding, and they're pushing, and they're trying, and
and it wasn't
the story's not over.
Yeah, it wasn't always hit. Like even for big guys, like like David Bowie, like people didn't love Tin Machine. People didn't love Tin Machine. Like that wasn't a huge record for them at all. But like and people didn't like. There's any big artist, like there's a big chunk of Bob Dylan in the '80s that like people don't hold up as being like his pinnacle catalog. I can think of all kinds of bands that you go, if you're going to sustain some sort of artistic career for multiple decades, they're not in the words of Primus, they can't all be zingers. You can't hit it every time.
I think, even from my own personal experience, like I've hit this point where, and this could lead into a whole nother conversation, but the essence of success and that definition is completely changed in my mind now that I'm a little older. And that's a general term there. Yeah. But I think it really, more than ever for me, and I know it's a cliche, but just for me personally, like I am really embracing the idea that you really have to do this because you love it.
Yep.
And if success comes of it, that's a byproduct. Great, that's awesome. But in fact, you got to just be happy completely with doing it and all that comes with the creative process. And
you think of a guy like I don't know, like Paul Westerberg or something like that, the frontman for the Replacements, and like even if no one ever heard of him ever again after the Replacements, and thankfully we have because he's made phenomenal records after that.
he would still be a guy in a basement writing all those songs.
Yeah.
Like all those songs on like 14 Songs and Stereo and all that those songs would exist.
Yeah.
Just you'd never hear them.
Wouldn't have heard of them.
Yeah, you wouldn't. Like guys like that, musicians like that, they have to make music. Like,
and that's the guy. That's the other half of Love Cartel, Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
He's the same way. Like he is a purist at heart. Like,
he's just gonna make. He's gonna write those tunes.
Yeah, he's in the basement all day, every day, and that's why he's the soul of Love Cartel.
Yeah,
Like
I imagine guys like him. Just the act of creating is the thing that he loves the most, and everything else is fun. You get to make music with your friends, go out and play it, go in the studio, hang out, like make an idealized version of it, and that's all fun. But in the end, like guys like that just want to sit in a basement with a piano or a guitar and just write.
It's religion
tunes.
for them and spiritual. And you know what? As I get older, I think I'm feeling that way, which is
I
cool.
definitely think it's meditative.
Right.
And even if
religion
in the
is
end,
a strong word, but it's spiritual and cathartic.
Yeah, I always consider I consider it a very meditative, possibly even like in the Eastern sense, where you just sort of it's so hard to wipe your mind clean. Like the old thing they say in Buddhism is like, make your mind as blank as this page, or as smooth as a stone, or whatever like that.
Right.
And how do you do that? How do you shut out the world? But like, if you're engaged in that thing,
in the moment,
you can't you don't realize you've shut everything out, but you have. Yeah. I'll be down here for hours and kind of poke my head up and like, the hell time is it?
Yeah,
it's 1 a.m. I should go to bed.
It's what's called flow, right? I've heard that term. Maxwell, what's his name? It was an author a couple years ago that wrote a book about that. But it's the idea of like how, when you're locked in and everything falls to the wayside, there's just this flow that comes through.
Yeah,
you're just for hours and hours and hours, which is cool, and that's the greatest part of the creative process.
Yeah, absolutely. So we went all over the place right there. Yeah, but no, that's great.
We're so deep. We're so deep.
It's just two dudes in a basement, just completely
with beer,
completely up their own ass. It's just absolutely.
Eyes just rolling back right now.
So Love Cartel. Well, we'll go to Love Cartel, but like, I'm curious about you. Like, where do you come from originally?
So I'm a bit of a transplant. I've moved around a lot in my younger years, and actually hopefully settled at this point. But I'm originally from the northern suburbs of Philadelphia. I identify with a small town called Souderton out that way.
Yeah, I know Souderton, Flowertown, that kind of.
Yeah, that Jenkintown, Flowertown, they're down south, whatever, down just a little bit further south, but I'm outside Lansdale and all that way. Moved around a bunch before that. Single mom, doing her best to hold down the house with two young boys.
Oh, so you
she was
have
chasing
siblings?
the jobs and stuff. Yeah, I got one blood brother, one stepsister, one stepbrother.
Everyone's tight.
No, no, but we're not. We appreciate each other, but me and my blood brother, I adore him to death.
Yeah.
He's the man, and my stepbrother's a great kid. He's awesome too, and my stepsister's a sweetheart as well. They have their own lanes that they're in. Yeah. So many things have come and gone in waves with the familial stuff as I've gotten older. So from out there, and then I had step family down here in Port Richmond, so we would oftentimes be in the city for a number of years. So the city was not foreign to me by any stretch of the imagination, and we would come down here for various entertainment and vices and and whatever else.
So what are we talking like early 90s, mid 90s?
Yeah, mid 90s.
South Street in the mid 90s, that kind of stuff.
Definitely catching shows. It was like
the old
Pontiac.
Dobbs. It would have been Pontiac. Yeah.
And then it became Dobbs.
Yeah, and like Doc Watson's on 11th Street.
11th,
Yep.
At TLA and the Heat Factory. And,
TLA,
and
back when TLA was independent and showed Rocky and had Rocky Horror on the weekends.
Yep. Yeah. So, I certainly wouldn't claim to be from the city, but it's definitely a part of my fabric.
Yeah.
And so, wifey and I moved down here. We started up in Roxborough area about 10 years ago or something like that. Spent a couple years up there. Then we were in Center City South, not to be confused with South Philly. for all the Bella Vista people claiming to be in South Philly, we've had this conversation before we were on air.
I mean, 20 years ago, that was kind of South Philly.
Right. No, but it's true. I definitely, it depends on who I'm talking to. Where I check myself real quick. We were living in Center City South. They're like, don't bring that upper crust shit around here, man, boy. And but then
that is so Philly right there.
Yeah, it really is.
It's like neighborhood lines are drawn, and like you can't say you're from one
Right.
place if you actually lived in another place.
But I get it too. At the same breath,
Yeah.
like because there's an experience that comes with being in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
So we went up to Fishtown and set it up in there, and obviously it's a changing landscape up there.
Just tell me about it.
Yeah, but it's the irony of it is that like I super identify with the lifers in the old heads. Like,
Yeah.
way more than I do the gentrifying young professionals
Yeah.
of my fellow ilk.
I can't even begrudge the people moving up there either, because like I did it 12, 15 years ago moving here. It was a different kind of place to move, but like Philly was definitely not cool in 2003, 2004, but like I know even 5 years before that it was even more different before that. So
It's an awesome spot, and I mean,
I love it. I've been here forever.
Yeah,
like
the city at large is I think in a I don't want to say a renaissance, but there's something afoot in the cultural and art scenes, particularly the music scenes that I feel it's bubbling, and you feel. And Fishtown is definitely an epicenter of that.
Yeah,
maybe not,
but it's not. But there's good music to be found everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. Like down here in South Philly,
Yeah.
great
Yeah,
bands.
definitely not to take
West
anything
Philly,
away from
great
anybody
bands.
else, for
North
sure.
Philly, great bands. You
Yeah.
go to Manayunk. You go up into the Northeast. Like you're gonna find like Germantown, like all that. Like you're gonna find great talent
Yeah.
everywhere. And what I think I love the most about it is that like it's not careerist. Like people are just genuinely into it. Like they want to make their music, they want to have their shows,
Yeah.
they want to build a community, and hey, everybody wants to get paid, but
Do you feel it's always been that way, or do you think that's a new phenomenon?
I think there's always been bands. I think over the last few years, say over the last 5 to 7 years, there's been a lot more attention. There's been more breakout stories. So instead of so when I first got here, I think the big breakout band in like 2003, 2000 was like Clap Your Hands, Say Yeah. And they were barely associated with Philadelphia. Like Alex Owensworth was like kind of Philly, but he had moved up to New York, but they still had some Philly ties. And
we won't let them forget.
And we loved them. Like we thought they were great. We thought they were a great band.
You forget where you come from.
His when he went on to his solo project too, he populated his touring band with mostly cats from Philly.
Yeah.
So, and then like Dr. Dog was kind of breaking out,
Yeah.
and you had bands like Man Man.
Yep.
But like all the bands that broke out, like in that kind of beginning, were all really interesting bands. Like they weren't like trying to sound like stuff that was on the radio. They weren't trying to pass as clean, as like polished this, that, or the other thing. Like Man Man is a weird ass sounding band. Dr. Dog is a weird ass sounding band, and they're phenomenal.
Yeah, they're really good. Yeah.
But like, it's so distinctly unique. Like Kurt Weill is very unique. War on Drugs.
But
all
I
that,
think that's honestly what makes them successful, right? Because if they sounded like everybody else, then
because
I don't think
nobody
they'd be able to
cared about
distinguish.
anything
Yeah.
from Philly.
Right.
Nobody cared, but like we weren't New York, we weren't LA.
Yeah.
Like we weren't an industry town. We're still not an industry town,
Right,
but there's still great art being made here. And I think when you make art, I've said this 100 times on my show. If you're making art in a non-art industry town, you get some really wild stuff.
Right.
You get some really cool shit happening.
Yeah. No, I think because there's a liberty that comes with that.
Yep.
Where I don't know whether it's a lack of expectations or what it is, but there's just creative freedom when you're not in, I don't know, that pressure cooker of Brooklyn or wherever it is.
But out of Brooklyn, like even before Brooklyn had a lot of eyes on it, you got like TV on the radio. Like I don't know how you would get that band out of anywhere else than just like a group of very different kind of guys getting together, just making some weird, crazy. Like you listen to that first TV on the radio record, you're just like, my God, like what do you even do with it? Like if you walked into like a music hall with 100 people and saw that band at that time in like 2004 on stage, you'd be like, what the hell do I do with this?
Yeah.
Because you can't just take it in and be like, I know what this is.
Right.
And that's what I love about a lot of Philly bands. You can't just walk up, you can't just listen to to a lot of Philly bands and be like, oh, I know what you're doing here.
That's
you
the
actually
sound of
have
X, or
you
that's
actually
the
just
sound
have
of
to
Y.
listen to it.
Right.
You have to reckon with it.
I think that's a huge compliment to bands.
Yeah, absolutely.
when it's familiar but distinct. I think that's a separator that is a great advantage to be sought out with these bands, these young guys. And for anybody that's listening, definitely if you're ever debating, do I write from my heart and where I want to go, or you're going to be formulaic? Like obviously, stick to your.
I think
instincts.
write whatever makes you. Some people are happy being formulaic. Some people like it.
I don't mean.
Yeah, but some
not to
people
say,
are
like,
happy writing to a
ABC,
grid.
yeah.
They're just like, I want to write stuff that sounds like this, and to them the fun is the challenge of being like,
Right.
how do I make the next Bruno Mars style single? Like that's a challenge for me to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
not to backtrack off of that. I just meant I'm just a big fan of people not giving into inhibitions, or did I say that right?
Or giving into
I'm opposed to them.
Yeah.
Holding back is what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say. So
Put it all out
ineloquently.
there.
And even if you're trying to emulate something, go for it or whatever. But
Be you doing it.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
You love Bruno Mars. That's cool. What would you do if you were Bruno Mars?
Right, right.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, I'd enjoy my money if I was Bruno Mars.
This is true.
But getting back to you, so you're
Yeah.
coming to the city at a young age.
Right.
You're seeing bands, just getting formed because like
Yeah.
the bands you see as a teenager, especially in your early teenage years, staying out late and all that, like that stuff really does form what it is, like what rabbit hole you're gonna go down, like as you become
Definitely.
older. So like, what kind of stuff were you seeing? Like what kind of bands were you seeing in Philly growing up?
I have a really unique and winding way to where I came. So I was actually, I'd be lying to say that I was actually into rock and roll music in the 90s at that moment. I was actually brought up on hip hop, like the golden era of that 90s hip hop, and I to almost exclusively, like to the point of I would even fault myself for being slightly ignorant back then, where I would purposely shun what now I look back on and go, this was so awesome.
Yeah.
So like Tone, like Anthony, the guy, the other guy in Love Cartel, he will constantly be reintroducing me to stuff that like people like yourself just take for granted.
Yeah.
They're like,
Well, stuff that you met. Yeah, I mean, because you can't get everything first time around.
So when we were coming down, we were catching shows that were really hip hop oriented.
Yeah.
Like if Mobb Deep was in town.
Yeah.
I mean, we ran the gamut. We would die to catch a big show or whatever it might have been. So a lot of that was what I came up on. And interestingly enough, it's an interesting backstory. But at one point, we had kind of become enamored with the more street rap, the hip hop stuff, and I didn't really have too tight of a family system growing up. So my friends were my family, and for all intents and purposes, street kid's a strong word, but we had a lot of liberty as kids growing up. My mom was doing her best to hold down, working almost two full-time jobs the whole time. So these other kids that, in retro, didn't have the best family situations either became that core group of guys, and there was a bunch of them, and we had kind of gotten into our version of the street life, so to speak, and getting more and more into hip hop. And there was a point where it was I don't want to call it thug rap because that's like it's such a derogatory term when it wasn't. But we kind of took it to heart.
Well, heavier rap, heavier themes, like a little more real.
Thank you.
Than
and
I don't think thug rap, but they're talking about crime. They're talking about
exactly
the darker shit that goes down in life living in these kinds of places.
And I think, as a suburban kid, we felt we had things to prove, which is the most ridiculous thing in the world. But back then, when you're a 17, 18-year-old kid.
Well, yeah, because you want to seem like you can hang.
And you're trying to identify and all this stuff. To make a long story short, two of
and
my
of course
best friends.
That's awkward. Yeah.
Two of my best friends got caught up, and they ended up getting sent upstate for years and years.
So they got a little bit more into the criminal side.
Yeah,
of it.
yeah. And at that point, I had really started to step back, and I had some close brushes with the law as well.
Yeah.
But always had half a head on my shoulders, enough to not push it too hard. But it was such a close call, and seeing what them happen, there was this whole falling out for me of hip hop and rap, and it was the same time where Puffy was breaking in with shiny suits, and it was just a whole weird thing was going on. And, so I was kind of out in the pastures trying to find the new me, and I'd kind of
you had seen these guys and these people who are your brothers, and you saw it not go well for them, and you're like, look, I love this music, I love the community, I love the art, I love this. But it seems like there's a lot of things entrenched in this that at a young, impressionable age, if you slip or slide one way or the other, you might not be able to come back out.
And that's our fault for taking it literally and trying to be assholes. Like, you know what I mean?
True.
Like we're the idiots that like, you know, tried to emulate. Yeah. You know, and like, I mean, at the time we were whatever, young and dumb.
All the things we do when we're kids, like I feel like if you didn't hurt anybody, then like we can kind of pass it off, be like, that is a thing that happened.
Unfortunately, people got hurt in this scenario, but as it relates to the music, shortly thereafter, my best friend passed away, and it was a whole I'm throwing everything I know off and starting anew. And ironically enough, and again, I was a kid who just loved and lived for hip hop and hardcore hip hop and this, that, and the other. But the damnedest thing happened. Somebody accidentally left, of all CDs, in my car one night. Yes, that a CD, kids, is that little shiny round thing that people put coffee on now. And they go, a Dave Matthews CD.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Take it where you will, but it was Under the Table and Dreaming.
Yeah,
and
which is a great record.
Yeah. And when I put it in the car, I was. Can I curse?
Oh yeah. We've done it like 90 times.
Yeah. It just goes to show you. Like my mind was fucking blown because it was so foreign to me, and I think at that moment I was so open to something new.
Yeah,
that was not the same shit that I had been listening to.
Yeah.
That it just it swept me up, and like it opened my eyes to a whole nother world that I once purposely shunned because I just thought, like, you know, I don't, these hippie kids.
Who are these trust fund hippie kids?
Yeah, whatever it might have been. To my ignorance, you know, and for that I apologize if I ever offended somebody.
I mean, I feel the same way about the crowd around that too, especially around that time, because I liked the band. And I still do. I still think I still think Dave is an amazing songwriter. I think that band is just out of sight.
Yeah,
and you being a hip hop guy and really into rhythm, like for you to hear like Carter Beauford playing the drums, you'd be like, well, this guy's got beat, this guy's got groove. Like, I want to listen to this guy. It's interesting because they were really such a strange band to break out. Like, and I think about that often. I'm like, wow. I'm like, how did that happen? Like, but they built it over years and years of playing, touring, building a fan base. You know, the things you're supposed to do. Build a fan base, get good on stage, be able to deliver a killer show everywhere you go. Yeah. And at the time, you know, when there was no YouTube and you couldn't just watch whatever you wanted, when bands like that came through, people stopped and noticed.
I'll tell you, I'll never forget the first time that somebody convinced me to go see. They didn't even have to convince me. I think at the time I was just so taken with that album. But this was back when the internet was in its infancy, or as we know it today. So I don't even think you could get tickets online at this time. But you had to actually go to the mall overnight and camp out and do the whole line.
I've done that enough times in my life.
Mind blown, bro. Like I was like, there's a party in the mall parking lot to get tickets overnight, and
for the band, for the show that's not going to happen for another 3 months,
right? Like, so and hence my introduction to the Dave cold or whatever the crowd.
I was definitely I was sort of probably traveling like parallel to that in the Fish cult, like,
right? And I was going to say, like, there's a lot of maybe
crossover.
Not the music, but
there's a lot of crossover. A lot of Fish guys were Dave guys, a lot of Dave guys Fish guys, and a lot of our parents were like dead guys, like, and stuff like that. I didn't really come to the Dead till much later, but there was community around it.
Absolutely. And that, for a guy who had just lost his best friends, I was really hoping and finding some refuge in that community for a little while.
It's a lot more positive of a community,
absolutely,
too. So
absolutely.
Like, you cannot
picked
well.
Fall, right, exactly. Like, I mean, like we can kind of dismiss it sometimes as like
it was kind
idyllic,
of a bro,
but,
like sort of a bro scene and kind of a frat boy thing and all that. But the music, the music that fueled that scene, the music of the Dave Matthews Band. My God, I'm gonna get emails about this.
It's all right.
But like the music of the Dave Matthews Band was positive and soulful, and and it was about like doing. It was about being better, about like doing better, and amazing to watch. Amazing to watch guys put that much into a show, that much into like perfecting playing their instruments.
Yeah, at the time, and I imagine it still is for the right person. It's mind blowing. But the point being is, that was a short lived. Obsession, but I don't even call that strong. But it was a great time, and it was a cool experience, and it was just so foreign to me. That's what really blew my mind. But what it did, the parallel story is, I had tried my hand at rapping, which is like the worst shit ever. And if there's a video out there, I please don't ever somebody don't
I
ruin
promise I
my
won't
future.
go. I promise I won't go look for it.
Don't ruin my future political career by showing out. But
You've got legal tentacles now. You could probably do something.
Oh,
about
this
that.
is true, right? But I quickly realized I was not cut out for that by any stretch of the imagination. So I had actually picked up my first acoustic guitar, which then started this long journey into my absolute love of rock music, which is the biggest irony because, as a kid now growing up, like my dad, we had partial custody, but when we were with him, like he was a huge like Chicago Hall and Oates who I fucking love. I don't care.
Yeah, no, they're
if you
great.
don't like Hall and Oates, go find the nearest bridge and jump off. But no, just kidding. Don't do that.
If you don't love Private Eyes or Maneater,
what is good? No, I'm just kidding. I get it. But I think it's time and place for me.
Yeah.
But I will say, sidebar, when they came to Fillmore for the opening show,
oh
my god,
did you go to that?
Oh hell yeah! And I took my dad, which was the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
So that was a good time. But and I had actually in the '80s, I'd really been into like the Def Leppard, like the Poisons.
That was like
and even Metallica.
That was all MTV. That was like a good MTV diet right there, though. Yeah.
And I guess my river didn't run real deep, but it flowed.
Big rock,
but
big rock.
Yeah. But anyway, so to bring it full circle, I eventually started doing the acoustic thing. As it goes, I started learning new music and what's this, and then somebody, of course, turned me on to the Beatles, which, right? Like, I mean, I guess who doesn't like? It still blows my mind that it took me that long to.
It's sort of
come
the
up on
blueprint of the pop rock song right there. Like, and you can have all kinds of conversations with people, and like I usually roll my eyes anytime someone's just like, "I don't really like the Beatles." I'm just like, "You're just saying that saying that to say that." But like, you cannot like. There are tons of important bands that I don't like. I'm not a big Fleetwood Mac guy. I don't. It's not for me. I understand what they did. It's just not for me. So like, I kind of feel that way when people are like, I don't really like the Beatles. I'm like, that's fine. You don't have to like them.
Yeah. But I think what it did for me is it made me really appreciate songwriting.
Yes.
Songwriting. And whether I get it. Like some of their shit is bubblegum rock in the beginning, pop, whatever.
Even in the beginning, I'll always argue in the beginning, they really had a unique take. They had their own take on American rhythm and blues.
Yeah.
And a lot of other bands did that at the time. There were tons of bands in the early 60s, English bands, hearing American rhythm and blues on the radio and being like, let me do that. Let me just play that. But very few bands were able to put their own little unique spin on it. Yeah. And I think part of it was probably that they were working class and they could like, I don't know, maybe something resonate. Like Motown, like Detroit and Liverpool, like really weren't that different of places at the times, or Chicago or something like that. So when you hear like working class blues, working class rock and roll, rhythm and blues played over to an English working class town, like of course that resonated with them. Yeah. Just the blues in general are going to resonate with them.
But it's I guess I had a lot of catching up to do is my point, right? So all these bands guys that had been in rock music for years, such as yourself, maybe at the time.
It was stuff that was shorthand for all of them, and for you, you're just trying to catch up.
Right, but the great thing was, which was beautiful, was that I had a complete body of work to go dive into.
Yeah.
It was just a mass amount of stuff that, and to this day, I still will get turned on, to newer bands, or new stuff to me, but they've clearly been around forever. But somebody's like, what do you mean it took you that long to come on to New Order? Like, or something.
No, you get there at this point. I think you get there when you get there.
Yeah, right.
I was into New Order because I heard New Order when I was younger and it resonated with me.
Yeah.
But if I hadn't been, I was just saying to someone, we were talking about the soundtrack to Empire Records.
Yeah.
And I said, like, if I hadn't heard that Evan Dando cover of the Ballad of El Godot, which is a Big Star song, I would never have known who Big Star was till probably I was in my later 20s. Like, I would have missed that band for the next decade of my life. So it's all about when you hear stuff.
Yeah.
And if it resonates, some stuff that never resonated with me when I was a kid, I think is the greatest thing now. Some stuff that I thought that was the greatest when I was a kid, I listen to now. I'm like, what the hell is this?
What was I thinking? I got a shit ton of new metal CDs sitting somewhere in the basement. That's like, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
But it was it was a time.
But it worked for you at the time, and
place.
some stuff holds through. I mean, for me of that era too, like the Deftones still hold big for me.
Still amazing.
System of Down still holds big for me.
Yep.
The first Korn record I still think is fantastic.
Yep. Actually, the first couple ones were really good. But yeah, I totally agree. Deftones still rock.
Oh gosh,
I saw them at Croc Rock like 2 years ago with like whatever, it might have been 600 people. This was after Chi had passed away,
Yeah.
I think. And it was and but they had like a new, like they wanted a new, you could tell there was some fire, like we're going to come back and do this.
They're always making interesting music. And that was the great thing about the Deftones that kept them from being just like another sort of mindless new metal band, was that they made some pretty smart music.
Yeah.
I remember the first time hearing an acoustic version of a Deftones, like hearing him just sing an acoustic guitar and be like, holy cow, he could really sing. Someone said to me, it's like Tom York is singing the Deftones right now. And you're just like, wow.
There's some gems. They got it live from Hawaii, I think, acoustic or something.
Yeah.
It's like some blended thing. There's some tracks on there that are so awesome.
It's great stuff.
But
that's the stuff that holds up.
Right.
You know, the POD and the Puddle of Mud and all that, maybe not so much.
No.
But, you know, but that's fine, because maybe it holds up for somebody else.
Right. And, you know, to each their own. But as it goes, at the same time, as I started kind of gravitating towards learning the instrument, playing it, I had actually started becoming much more political, if you will, or conscious of my surroundings and what was going on. So that was a whole nother eye-opening but parallel experience that ended up falling over into my music. Our first incarnation, one of my first bands, was a band called Narco Lolo.
I found that on the internet.
Yeah.
And then when you showed me Love Cartel, I'm like, something tells me that's the thing he would rather me focus on.
Right, exactly. People are like, what the fuck does Narco Lolo mean? And to this day,
I was just kind of looking at song titles. I'm just like, he probably doesn't want me to dive into this too much right now.
Right.
I listened to some of it. It's cool. Like,
dude, it was really, really ideal young musicians trying to do something, like just making noise. And there's no secret. Like I have, like, growing up, like, one of the battles I've always had with music, and I think a lot of people do, and maybe they just don't admit it as much, but like insecurity just left and right, man. Like, just, I hated my voice. To this day, I still like, I mean, I'm more confident nowadays, but back then I was especially afraid to demonstrate it in public and stuff. So a lot of when I look back, and I was listening to one of your early podcasts, and I heard one of the other guys saying the same thing. It's like, when you look back, you're like, oh, well, let's keep that in there. Keep that one in the crates. But as it goes, the band kind of had political overtones, and I think we were doing our best to sort of be Rage, but not be us with, like,
but that was
some funk.
But that was such, like, a huge thing. I think Rage Against the Machine, for guys, I don't use the term guys, just talk about men. But
sure,
people who were inclined to that kind of music, that we heard that at that age. Yeah. You're right. I think you're only a couple years older than
36.
Oh, you are? Okay,
yeah.
We're the exact same age. Okay. Sorry to assume you're a couple years older.
I look old, bro.
Well, it's because you're a lawyer. I figure anyone who's a lawyer instantly has to be a couple years older.
Aged, man, dude. It ages you.
Law school does age you.
We'll get into that.
But so, like, you and I heard Rage at the same time in our lives, like when we were probably like 15 or something like that. And when you're just starting to, like, form opinions about the world at 15 or 16, and to hear, like, Sleep Now in the Fire or something like that, or Bomb Track, and you're just like, not only is it like this vicious political message where you're just like, oh my god, like, you can think like this, someone thinks like this. The guitarists are so fucking good.
Insane.
Like,
Tom Morello, what he
oh god, like, I will still hold up when people are just like who still blows you, like, who do you still go back? I'm like, I can still listen to that first Rage record and just be like yeah. Because it's not rage. It's not like mindless rage. You're not just, like, being angry for the sake of being angry.
No.
Like, there is a directed anger where Zach,
dude,
you know,
he's an
Zach
informed
is just
individual.
It's like, are you pissed off? Good. Be pissed off about this.
Your anger is your gift.
Yeah.
We don't have to sing their praises all night, but I agree with you. And it was formative in that he really did know what he was saying. He just wasn't angry for the sake of being angry.
He was incredibly informed, incredibly intelligent.
Along those lines, so thus started my dalliance into the political type side of things, mid-2000s, stuff like that. And at the time, you may recall, the Bush administration was doing something called acoustic bombardment, which was basically using deafening levels of audio, like, to torture
Metallica and stuff like that.
Barney, Eminem.
Yeah.
And I was, like, just fucking appalled as a songwriter, right? And we can get into the, like, is it really torture? Yes, it is, but that's a different thing.
The whole idea is, like, this music was created to uplift people. Right. This music was created to make people happy.
Well, that's it.
To, like, make people feel something.
Right.
This music was not created as an instrument of
torture.
of pain.
Yeah.
Like, Despite the fact some people are like, oh, I can't listen to it. It's like, that's fine. Well, then just don't listen to it. But like,
I know the jokes were abound,
Yeah.
right? But
like, you know, the Black Album was not made to like hurt people. The
Right.
Black Album was made because there were 4 guys from the Bay Area
Right.
who like really wanted to make this record.
Sure.
Like,
And the question was, right, before I ever became a lawyer, before I ever knew anything about this, was how can they do that? How can they use that shit? You know, how can
Yeah.
I mean, the answer is to do what they want, but you
Well,
know, but
yeah.
and you know, maybe 10 years down the line in a court that goes up the circuits, maybe you'll get some reprieve. But
Yeah.
But that being said, funny enough that I should use that word, because there was a nonprofit organization out of London, I believe, that was called Reprieve, that had a campaign at the time called 0DB, and they were really the ones on the forefront of making that more aware.
Okay.
So that I ended up kind of doing volunteer work for them for a little bit, and integrated my music, and it was like a whole come full circle type thing.
Yeah.
with the advocacy and the music, and then circa 2008, there was I ended up starting an organization called Allied Artivist. It was like a grassroots organization that would gather musicians and the power of music to bring it to good social justice causes. So, you know, we do various things, everything from like, hey, this person's home burned down, can we have a fundraiser for them, to let's go to this rally and, you know, just charge it up type thing, whatever.
There's a lot of stuff like that happening now too. So it sounds like
Right.
you're already sort of trained.
right. And the final formative step prior to going back to law school was, all the while I'm pushing as a musician as well, trying to do my best to find my way. But then, of course, the Occupy movement happened.
Yeah.
And I had become pretty heavily involved in some of the organization efforts here in town, and then as a liaison up to New York at the time. And it was a really eye-opening experience. It was beautiful in so many ways and completely and utterly frustrating in other ways. And I made the
I think you just described the human condition.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I had made the decision for me personally that I could no longer stand on a street corner with a sign and just shout. Like that helps, but I have always maintained that like all the external pressure, you need an in and out approach to affect change. I really do believe that, because a prudent and a pragmatist is going to say, like, look, in an ideal world, we would work outside the system and fuck it all and burn it to the ground, whatever. But my personal experience led me to believe, like, look, you need somebody on the inside who hasn't been corrupted, but can somehow manage to find themselves in a position of influence or power to be able to pull that lever when the time is right and help your cause. So I thought, you know, I need to go back. I need to do something more than just stand out here. And then I hit that proverbial 30-year-old fork in the road as a musician, where I'm like,
what are we doing here?
Wifey's staring at me like, yo, bro, like, what's up? Like, yeah, like,
The band's great and all, but
she's like, I've been riding for a long time now, man. And Mama's trying to go on vacation.
Yeah.
So, so that, in addition to a pretty raw contractual situation that I came across.
Well, I was curious about that. That was actually one of the questions I had, was like, was there anything that happened to you in your musical life? I mean, it sounds like you're also politically active. You were very into it. You were very passionate about that. And so that alone could be enough for someone to want to go to law school. But was there anything in a sort of a legal way that happened to you as a musician where you're just like, man, there's got to be an easier way?
Yeah. Without going into too much detail, but the short answer is that I had entered into a contract that basically ended up me losing a lot of money based on my desire and idealism to make it as an artist, right? And had I had competent counsel at the time, I never would have signed that, and I would have been.
You would have
much
been
better off. Much better
you would
off.
have been more knowledgeable about what you were entering into, and maybe not even entered into.
I wouldn't have. And I don't mean to be cryptic or anything like that, but
I mean,
you know, it's a situation.
People know that story. You're not the only one with that story.
Exactly. It's just, you know, letting bygones be bygones at this point. But that was definitely the impetus for. I was at the time where I kind of just checked out. I was like, dude, it's not moving. It's not happening. Whatever it is, I'm frustrated. I just spent a fucking boatload of money on something that I probably should have never have.
Yeah.
But anyway, it all led up into making this decision, go back to school.
Yeah.
So I went back thinking that I was going to be a constitutional lawyer because I wanted to kind of pursue that. But I quickly realized, God bless them, I could never be a constitutional lawyer because I realized something about myself at the time. I'm the doctor who can't separate himself from the patient.
Gotcha.
So, like, I would be
You can't just look back and just be like, well, that's the law, and unfortunately, I can't do anything. You would be
right. You need to be clinical. You need to think clearly as a clinician, and like
you like to take it home, don't
right.
you?
I just like internalize too much.
Oh yeah, no, I
and,
mean that's
you're forever raging.
You're
at
an
somebody.
artist,
yeah. So, right. And I think at the time, at least upon entering school, I felt maybe I had been burned a little by music emotionally. At that point, I had been pushing for like 10 years and playing and doing the thing and stuff.
And to have those massive disappointments happen, and you just be like, well, what the hell did I do all that for?
It's tough, and I know a lot of people feel this way, and like everybody goes like
people can get really bitter about that stuff, or like
it's a great word.
Yeah, people can get bitter and really, really jaded.
Yeah,
often while they're in the process of doing it too, because it is a business.
Yeah.
And in any business, there are people out there who don't care about art, and I blame them for what they do to people, but I don't necessarily blame them for not caring about art, because they kind of look at it and be like, well, look, I don't care one way or the other, but this is a money-making thing. And there are some people out there who excel at making money.
Capitalist system. Right?
I mean, and we're all complicit.
Yes,
so,
absolutely. Yeah. So anyway, I digress. To get back to that story, which was basically like
not constitutional law. You started looking at entertainment law, or
right? Exactly.
Like
and I kind of looked around, and I think I had kind of let go some of that like bitter, and more than that, like I had friends in the scene out here that were kind of didn't know what to do. They were calling me, hitting me up, and just being like, "Hey, man, I got this thing going on."
They're just looking for you because you had been there before.
Yeah, that, and they're like, "Oh, well, you're a 1L. You know everything about the law, don't you?" Like, and my wife ended up buying me a shirt after 2L or after 1L year that it said, "Trust me, I'm a 2L," which is like the epitome of every 2L thinks they know. Yeah. They passed 1L year. They're like, "I'm going to be the next, the greatest litigator funny. In the world." But anyway, so it was a natural come back around to something that I love deeply. Like, music to me is spiritual. It is spirituality to me. It is my center of gravity in many ways. And more than that, I realized that like maybe all of those experiences added up to this moment of me being able to go back, know what that is like, and help artists at the DIY level or at the inception of their careers or even midstream, and hopefully someday the top of the oven. No, but no, and so I quickly fell in love, and more than that, like it was for the first time, it was something that I didn't have to fight for it. It naturally came, which has been a big theme for me musically, which is like has always been. I always felt like it was just constantly a fight.
A fight to get it to have just to get it out.
Yeah, just to like get something going. Like and serendipity wasn't always on my team, which I know that happens a lot, and everybody's like, "Dude, we're all in the same fucking boat. Shut up." But I get it.
But this was the first time where you were just like, "This feels right," and you didn't have to go out and get like a different tool set. You didn't have to go out and relearn anything because you're just like, "Oh, my entire life experience up to this point has informed."
Yes,
from
the non-academic perspective.
And which I think is as important, if not more.
Absolutely, and that's what I do think today helps me a lot and distinguishes me in some regards, is that like I know the nuance, I know the pain you're going through, I'm with you, and so I think that's an advantage that maybe it takes a little bit longer, sometimes much longer, for maybe another lawyer who didn't have those experiences growing up to actually become
or they could be a little more clinical and maybe not empathize in the way. And, you can't really, well, I suppose you could bill for empathy, but like, I mean, there's
many lawyers do.
Yeah, but there's
you think they're being a friend, meanwhile they're running up the clock.
But like when someone comes to you with like, say like a contractual thing or a legal thing, you're able to immediately, because some people might be like, well, I don't understand why you're getting so emotional about this. It's just a business contract. And you'd be like, well, dude, this is your art. Of course you're getting emotional about this.
The cool thing is I feel like I can be that middle ground for them. Like I can think clinically. That's my job. You're paying me to make sure that I protect you.
But it's
at the same
stake.
time, I know. Yeah, exactly. And I know this sounds cliche, but I'm not interested in consummating a deal just to get paid. Like if something's not good for somebody, and I try to be fair to all parties, everybody involved. I want to make sure that everybody walks away happy and that it's a sustainable relationship. Not always possible, but I do think that at least having both sides of that, knowing both sides of the coin helps me, in that regard. So it's been great, man. It's like a rebirth. I feel really at home helping other artists, and it's just so cool, man, to be able to like, just help somebody avoid making the same mistake I did. It's as simple as that, like something like that, or helping them achieve their dream. Is not, I don't, dream is a loaded word, but their goals, and like get to where the next step or whatever it might be.
It's someone who's trying to realize. I always say when I'm helping someone make a record, I always say, I'm just helping you realize your dream.
Right.
Not even I'm just helping you realize that thing that you already know that you want to do.
Right.
I'm just gonna make it a little easier for you. And that's great because, it's a music business, and so often there are people with their hands out. There's a lot of middlemen. There's a lot of people who aren't in it for the love of art. And again, that sounds so sort of like pie in the sky hippy dippy, but like you were saying back earlier, like if you don't, at its core, at least as a creator of this kind of stuff, if you don't love it, like, because that love is going to sustain you for all the times that you ain't getting anything else.
Right.
You're not getting paid.
Right.
You're not getting people at the show. You're not selling the records. You got to just love going down into the room and writing, or going in the practice room with the guys or whoever and banging it out. That has to be enough sometimes.
Right. Absolutely.
And if it's not, then you got to kind of question what it is that you're doing in the first place.
Right. Yeah. And I get it. Like most artists hate is a strong word. They don't want to be bothered with business.
Oh, absolutely not. I will use it. I hated it.
Yeah.
That was my least favorite part about being in a band.
It sucks.
All the semantics, and I was good at some of it.
Yeah.
I was good at tour logistics. I was good at. I would have been a good tour.
There's
manager.
an art to it. That's why.
I would have been a good tour manager.
Yeah.
And again, like coming up in restaurants and coming up in the event world,
Right.
I was sort of already.
Yeah.
I was already skilled in doing that anyway, being able to create order out of chaos.
Yeah.
But no, when it came down to like, this is a licensing deal, or this is how, like, I was like, can someone else do this? I don't care.
Right.
I want to play music. I want to put us in a van. I want to get us on the road.
Right.
Everything else, someone else take care of.
Right. And I think there comes a point in every artist's career where they got to ask, are they going to take themselves serious, or what do they want? That's the first question. Like, if that's not the lifestyle you want, then don't get forced into it. Like, and when I say the lifestyle, I mean, if you don't want to enter into the music business,
if you don't want to do it for a living, because it's a job.
Right. And all the trappings that come with it.
Yep.
Taxes.
There are and like anyone who's fortunate enough to have a job that where there's enough of it they like, there's always part.
Right.
I mean, I'm fortunate in my regular work life now to be in a job that I like, but there's still shit about it I don't care for.
Yeah.
And that's life.
Absolutely. And it's a new world too. I mean, that's the other, elephant in the room, which is like the shifting dynamics of the musical landscape, right? Of the
distribution.
Business. Yeah, exactly.
And there's a lot of people we don't need anymore, and then there's a lot of people that we need a lot more.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so an artist does not it doesn't have to be an A or B situation anymore. It's not like you don't make it or you do make it. Like success is
many
what,
layers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's what you define it to be. So my job and hopefully other well-intended professionals are to help you get to whatever that is, right? And I'm certainly not going to push an artist in the direction to go in a more business-like arena if in fact what they truly want is just to make art, put it on there. Well, actually, let me back that up. I do want to make sure that you are protected no matter what you do. So you
want to make sure that whatever they put out into the world
is protected.
And they're able to reap whatever benefits is possible to reap from.
But what I meant to say is there are varying degrees of formalities, business structures, so forth and so on, that you can really entrench in. And sometimes not all of them are necessary if you are not looking to go to that nth degree.
Yeah.
So
you don't have to worry about international copyright if you never really plan on breaking into that market.
Right. So I mean, well, the irony being that the web is international, okay. So sometimes you do have to worry about it. Right.
Maybe
so there are all these implications.
You need a guy like you to come in and be like, look, I know you're not planning to ever go tour internationally, but Your music can be heard
Absolutely.
anywhere, so
Right, we need to make
let's
sure it's
take care of
protected.
this.
Absolutely, and some of it's it's not all that difficult, right?
Filling
it
out a
doesn't
form and
doesn't have
paying
to be
a
right.
fee.
It doesn't have to be that intimidating. But I do think that it's a great time for art and music in general. Like the barriers to entry. I mean, and this is always the conundrum. I always end up we have these conversations when I get into talking with other professionals, anybody. There is this conundrum right now where the barriers to entry have been all but decimated, right? We have home recording gears, we have distribution for $20
Studios
a year,
are cheaper.
whatever, good to go, right? But then, of course, now there's a plethora of noise just
there's
coming
more
at you.
there's more content,
Right.
And it really is content. As much as I hate that term, I can't come up with a much better one because it's just content, which is such a neutral word.
Right. Yeah.
It's not good, it's not bad.
Doesn't
it's
give
just,
rise to-
it's just fill.
Right. So
you got to wade through a lot more voices have access to the arena now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, so does everybody else.
Right.
Yep.
And that is a real difficulty that you have to confront as an artist, right? And I mean, you hear these stories, and I'm just like, I'm always so blown away by them. They're like, I put a few covers up on YouTube, and next thing you know, the guys up at Universal are calling me like scratching my head, like who does that happen to? Like,
but I mean, sometimes sometimes there's just that lightning in a bottle where you throw something out there. You throw a couple of your originals up there. It resonates with enough people, and then it resonates with enough people. You can't. If we could predict that, then there would be no challenge left in this industry at all.
To it, right? Yeah. I think the other thing, which is something I know that I personally had to and still do grapple with it as far as like the band stuff, but any artist would is the this concept of social media, right? And which is obviously all part of our big lives at this point, but the incessant need to constantly be on. Right, because I'm naturally an introvert, believe it or not, but and many of my colleagues are, right, but and so like their natural disposition is not to constantly put everything about their lives on there. But a lot of times, a lot of the more successful younger bands, like it's because they're always in someone's face. Well, they're constantly putting out content,
and you're creating personality right there too, because songs are songs. But if everyone's making kind of the same kind of songs, what's going to separate one band from another or one artist from another? It's just like, those two songs sound the same, but I like that one. Like, hey, I like that girl. Like, because
or you were there, you happen to hear it. Like in other words, just because they were there, they were consistent, and you were coming back. And
it's true, but sometimes you can. I don't know. There's a fine line between what is too much.
Too much. I agree. Yeah. I agree.
You got to stay up, and it's important. I don't know. There needs to be some sort of organic way where it's just like, look, we're just creating.
Yeah, and you could tell when people are being inauthentic.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like, here's me and my cheeseburger at 12, and then here's me and my, vegan steak at the irony.
But that is absolutely the term authenticity is absolutely appropriate right there, because I think there are certain bands that just go out there and they just are themselves.
Yeah.
And that can work.
Right.
Like you get a band like, I think of like Drive By Truckers or something like that. They are like Patterson Hood. He just is who he is. That band, they are who they are, and you enjoy it. You don't feel like it's an act or anything like that. And I think that's why a band like that would like resonates really well. I think that's why they also, it doesn't hurt that they're great at what they do and write great songs.
Of course.
But like they're able to go out and sustain because people are just like, that's them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's go out on something though, because you Love Cartel. You said you got new music coming out.
Yeah, man. Yes, sir.
You say you're dropping a single soon, or you're dropping a whole EP?
Yeah. We're doing two EPs actually. Hopefully,
that's called a record.
Yeah, exactly. We're splitting it up. And
no, that's good.
So
hey, gotta have content. Gotta stagger.
Right. Well, the idea is they're sonically completely different. So we decide to separate.
No, that makes sense. Yeah.
So the first EP is called Sayonara Until Tomorrow. That should hopefully be dropping around May, and it's more in-your-face indie rock. I tend to still incorporate a lot of that like hip-hop backbeat pocket.
But just from listening to some of the other stuff from Love Cartel, like I can definitely hear the bass in there. Like there's a little bit of funkiness, a little bit of groove going on in there. It's not just straight-ahead guitars, although there are plenty of guitars on those recordings. It does remind me in certain ways of what I was thinking when I was listening to something, when I was listening to it this evening, was just like, I said, this kind of reminds me of like that late 80s era of Los Angeles, like rock music where there was like a kind of a foot in both camps. You had a foot very much in the rock camp, like,
Nice.
you know, the big classic rock stuff, Sabbath, the Stones, Led Zeppelin. But there was always a foot in like, it could be a little funky. It could be a little different. There was something a little glitzy, a little glammier to it. And so like, I'll think of like, you know, Jane's Addiction or Fishbone or Living Colour or
Jane's is a
something
big
like that.
one
I
for
love
us.
Jane's
Yeah.
Addiction.
Yeah.
Like, and I love turning guys, speaking about the younger guys, I love turning the younger guys onto Jane's Addiction who've never heard Jane's Addiction. I'm just like, I always say the same thing. I'm like, listen to this. I'm like, listen to two things. I'm like, and one of them is not, and like, and ignore another one. I'm like, listen to Perry Farrell. Ignore Dave Navarro. Like, he's fine. Just accept Dave Navarro for what he is. And I'll probably get yelled at for this as well. I got no problem with Dave Navarro, but he's fine. I'm like, but listen to Eric Avery. Listen to their bass player.
Yeah.
He's so melodic. And speaking of New Order, like I've read in interviews with him, like he was channeling Peter Hook, like on that stuff. He was trying to make super melodic,
That's cool. I didn't know that.
super melodic bass. So when I hear a band like Jane's Addiction, I'm just like, I still listen to it. I'm like, sometimes there's just this band that just gets it right for 2 albums. Like everything afterwards that they tried to do, it never quite culminated in that certain area of late 80s, early 90s Los Angeles. And I kind of and I hear that when I listen to Love Cartel a little bit.
Cool,
There's
man.
like,
I'll take it.
There's a foot in both camps.
Yeah.
You guys are clearly schooled in a lot of different kinds of music, and you don't necessarily make distinctions between one or the other. You're just like, this is all music we love, so we're going to include all these elements that we like. There's, you know, there's a lot going on in this stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. We definitely draw from a wide variety of influences and hopefully land out to something that is uniquely us, back to our conversation before. And if people dig it, that's awesome. If they don't, I guess we just got to keep going. But so the first one is more that classical sound for us or whatever.
Yeah.
The lead single off it is Debate. Definitely, it wasn't written as a political song, but ironically enough has super political overtones in it. And so we're pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
And then a couple months after that will be the EP tentatively called Solar Control, which is more of an ambient album. I'm really like, dude, I'm just like, I love Beach House.
Yeah, they're great.
Like I've been to Washed Out right now, and like that whole like shoegazy thing, and so we're kind of like pulling some of that influence on that. It's going to be more of an ambient, slower,
a little bit,
album.
a little bit more of texture and less of a rock, like less of an in-your-face traditional rock style record.
Yep. So that's what's going on, and but of course. That comes secondary to my Superman cape that I go in the booth and put on as a lawyer. So it's cool, man. The conscious decision to be an entertainment lawyer was specifically so I can stay connected to the thing I love the most. And I just think it's awesome to be able to work with these young guys and anybody for that matter, established people that. That's what's beautiful, man. Like I was talking with a guy in Cape May. I was down there for a conference. And there was a dude who pulled up on the bar next to me. 72-year-old guy just dropped his first YouTube video. It was the coolest to see the shit in his eye, man.
He was into it. The idea that he could like make a song and put it out there and everyone could see it, probably never entered into his mind as a young or even middle-aged man ever. And at like 72 to be able to just be like, it's out there.
Yeah. It was so cool.
That's the best.
So that's
the joy of that's the joy of sort of the new tech at this point. Is that like if anything else, it can really empower people to just be like, look, I can make a thing.
Yeah,
and be like, yes, you can, even for your 100 people, for your audience of 100. Like,
right.
Good
Absolutely.
for you.
That's empowering to these guys, and it's a beautiful thing. And every place of refuge has its price, as the song goes, which is like with technology comes the new concerns that we fleshed out earlier. So but to my advice to the young artists are stay hungry, stay daring.
Definitely.
Yeah, and
try some shit.
And it's really, really hard, especially when you do make that decision, to try to make it, whatever that decision is, to not grow jaded and like bitter. Like just always treat your gig like it's the first time. Well, don't play like it's your first time. It probably sucks. But have that hunger and so forth and so on. And one of the other things I always say is if you do decide to flip the switch, like go in, go hard, don't look back. You will recover if that comes to that. But I definitely, the more I do this on the professional side, my critique would be is it's that old saying, if you chase two rabbits, you end up with none.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying be irresponsible, like know when
Would be
time to make
focused.
time. Yeah, but right, exactly. And if you're gonna do it, take yourself seriously and go get it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome, man. Great advice. Ash, thanks so much
Dude,
for coming.
It's been
It took a while to get you in
I
here,
know,
but
thank you so much.
we made
man.
it happen.
I really appreciate being in here. This has been awesome.
Awesome.
We'll be together till the end of time. 25
Well, that's the show for this week. Thanks so much for hanging out. Thank you, Ash Kernen, for being on the show. Great conversation with him, and there was a whole lot more to that conversation too. I don't mind telling you, there's about 25 more minutes of us sort of waxing philosophical about the current political situation and things like that. And I took it out not because I thought it was a bad part of the conversation. I thought it was very good, but I just thought it was long-winded, and at this point, how much more do you have to listen to two guys on a microphone talk about how disturbed they are by the state of the country? We're, of course, all still very disturbed, but I don't know. I'm trying not to make it all be about that. But I very well could put that out sometime. It was a very cool conversation. He's a very, very smart dude, Ash is. He's got a big heart. And he really, really wants to help musicians. So if you go to KernenLaw.com, KERNEN law.com, that's his law practice page. And if you're a musician in the entertainment world and you need some help, you need some advice, just want to talk to somebody, Ash is your guy. I highly recommend it. Also check out lovecartel.bandcamp.com. That's Ash's band, Love Cartel. Great band, super energetic, big rock band. Great stuff. You can go to 25o'clockpod.com. Get all the old episodes. Get everything. Don't forget West Philly Porch Fest, June 3rd, noon to 6 p.m. in the West Philadelphia neighborhood. Go to westphillyporchfest.com for more information. Do it. So you've got the next little bit cut out for you. You got a lot of websites to go to. You got a lot of things to check out. And you'll be better for it. Thanks for checking the show out. Sorry it took me so long, Ash, to put your episode out. Thank you for being patient. You're a good dude. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for supporting me for 70 episodes. That's where we are, episode 70. Thanks so much. I really do appreciate it. I really do enjoy hearing from you all. I enjoy talking to people who enjoy the show. Anyway, this is 25 o'clock. My name is Dan Drago. Until next time, take care of yourself.